I'm Lola Reeds, and this is Watching and Reading. I'm here to review this Korean movie, Exhuma. This movie opens at a medical center in America, St. Joseph's Medical Center. Right? Lee Hua-lin and Bong-gil, they go to see a baby in this medical center. And the issue is that this baby has been crying since the day that the baby was born. That's the problem that this baby had. And the parents of this baby were told that nothing is medically wrong with their child. So that was why the parents invited Lee Hua-lin and Bong-gil. The parents are Korean Americans, right? And Lee Hua-lin and Bong-gil are Koreans. We can see from the kind of because Lee Hua-lin and Bong-gil asked for some privacy, so all the medical attendants, the parents, they leave the room. They leave the both of them with the baby in the room, and they are chanting incantations on the child. It is revealed to them that the father of this child and the grandfather of this child also faced the same fate when they were born as well, right? So from what we can see here, we see that Lee Hua-lin and Bong-gil are kind of like Korean traditional spiritualists. The father of this child is Park Jeon. So Park Jeon invites Lin Hua-lin and Bong-gil back to his house. That's where Park Jeon then tells them that his own elder brother suffered the same fate as well, like went through what his baby is going through, and like his elder brother had actually grown up with that problem, and the family then realized that his elder brother was possessed. So like the elder brother battled his possession for a long time until he couldn't take it and he unalived himself. So immediately after his brother unalived himself, he then noticed that he now became possessed. So it was like he continued the possession from where his brother's possession has stopped, right? He explains the way his possession works, like he'd hear sounds of shouting, sounds of choking, continuously. And that was what he was battling with until his wife gave birth to their baby. And then after giving birth to their baby, now the father is now free. And then the baby is suffering this fate, like crying non-stop, right? So from what Park Jeon has told them, Lin Hua-lin had come to the conclusion that is the first grandsons in the family that are possessed by this spirit, right? That keeps saying things in their ears, making the babies to cry and all that. So that was the conclusion that they came with. Lin Hua-lin even told Park Jeon that immediately she walked into his house, she could sense that there was like a dark presence that is suppressing the older grandchildren of that bloodline. She could feel it when she walked in. Park Jeon then asks her what to do. Lin Hua-lin tells him that she can't do the exorcism alone, that she has to get the help of experts. So there's another character, Teacher Jin. Teacher Jin is an experienced exhumist. He has been exhuming bodies for like 40 years, and he's also an expert in feng shui. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, feng shui. So his full name is Feng Shui Master Tiger Eye Jin Shangde. Like that's his full name, but like to shorten it now, he's referred to as Teacher Jin. Lee Hua-lin and Bong-gil go back to Korea to meet Teacher Jin and his right-hand man, Gao Yong-gin. When they get there, Lee Hua-lin tells Master Jin like everything about Park Jeon and the things that she noticed and helping out the baby and all that. She also tells him Park Jeon's family is like filthy wealthy, like stupid wealthy, like I don't know what other adjective to give them. Like their money their money flows like a river. So that's what she tells him, and this encourages them. So like they all form this group to perform the exorcism, right? So they start investigating like the source of the problem, and Master Jin then tells Park Jeon that they would have to exhume the body of Park Jeon's great grandfather to like find out where the original problem is coming from. So when Master Jin tells Park Jeon about this, Park Jeon just tells Master Jin that he wouldn't want them to exhume the body. He just wants them to look at the coffin and come up with whatever the problem is and bury the coffin back. This makes Master Jin quite like uneasy. And Master Jin tries to explain to him like they can't come up with, or rather he can't come up with any reasonable findings unless like the body is properly exhumed from the coffin. And Park Jeon, it kind of became like a discussion between them. And Master Jin like almost pulls out before Park Jeon then agrees that okay, he'd allowed them to like bring out the body for them to check whatever they want to check. Park Jeon then takes the group to the burial sites, to the grave site, right? So it was on their way driving to the grave site. Master Jin was telling Gao Yong-gin that he feels uneasy about this type of job, about this job that they're about to take on. And his reason feeling uneasy was the fact that Park Jeon didn't want them to exhume the body. He wanted the coffin to be kind of like intact, knowing fully well that they could not be able to find anything. Like he was just feeling uneasy, feeling suspicious, sort of. But anyway, like Gao Yong-gin was like sort of making some sort of he was making excuses for Park Ji-young, right? Anyway, they get to the site, the grave site. And at the grave site, Master Jin also notices some other things that still makes him to feel more unease. First thing is like the grave site is actually out of town. Like it's practically the grave site is practically at the border, at the Korean border. And that's the only is Park Ji-young's great grandfather is like the only person that is buried on the border of South Korea. Like that, it was just where like that was the only grave site there. That was the first thing Master Jin noticed. The second thing he noticed was that there were a lot of like foxes. A lot of foxes were moving around the grave sites, and it was odd for him because according to feng shui, right, then if someone is unalive and is buried, right, like that's why it's supposed to be a grave site. That place is supposed to be at peace. You're not supposed to have animals like roaming around. But in this case, now there are a lot of foxes especially, and he's wondering why foxes will be roaming around on that grave site, right? The third thing now that he realized was that the tombstone like had no markings, had no name, no nothing. The only thing that was on the tombstone was this latitude and not latitude numbers. No name, no nothing. Almost like it was not even a person that was buried there. Almost like it was just maybe an object that was put there, and the tombstone was like a mark or something. On noticing this, Master Jin then asked Park Ji-young, like, what is it you are not telling me? That because this can't be the place. Like that was what Master Jin was trying to say. This can't be the place. This cannot be your great grandfather. And Park Ji-young was like, that is where they buried the great grandfather. He was like, there are some things you are not telling me. And Park Ji-young said, honestly, he has said everything that he knows. And that is where he knows that his great grandfather is buried. So immediately on the spot, Master Jin then rejects the job, refuses the job, and leaves. So as Master Jin went back to his car, right, the group was asking him why he rejected the job. And he said, the very fact that there is nothing written on the tombstone except latitude numbers is just off for him. So he told them that it is a very big sign that they should not exhume the body. Some bodies are not meant to be exhumed. That was what he told this group, right? So they went back to the hotel that Park Ji-young had rented for them. Park Ji-young came to see them there. And, Park Ji-young was then explaining his dilemma, talking about how difficult it was for his wife to have a child because the wife had been getting pregnant before and it had all been ending up in miscarriages. So, like, this is the first pregnancy that went through to full term and a child was born, and this is what his child is facing. Like, so he was just telling Master Jin all this so that Master Jin will sort of like have pity on him and help him, free the child from whatever pain free his baby from whatever pain his baby is going through. And he will explain that he's middle-aged already. Like that fear is there that the baby will die. And he had to start all over again with his wife. So, but Master Jin he just did not want to take on the job. It was Lin Hualin who kind of like convinces Master Jin to accept because she was moved by emotion. She was moved out of pity for the baby. So she convinced Master Jin and then they all, decided that, okay, they will continue and they take on the job. So after agreeing to this, right, the main day comes, the day that they are to exhume the body, right? And I liked that particular scene a lot. Like that was one of my best scenes in the movie. Where we see that some rituals have to be performed before the body is exhumed. Like I just really liked it. It was unapologetically traditionally Korean, right? So there was a lot of things Lil Huali was doing. She puts this kind of like, is it ash on her face? She was slashing pigs. They were beating drums and all those sorts. They just did this a lot of rituals before the coffin was exhumed. Right? So after the gravesite had been dug up, right, and the coffin was brought out. So everybody's surprised, right? Like the coffin was a coffin for royal families. And Master Jin is asking Park Ji-young, like, you did not tell us that you're from a royal family. And he was saying, no, he doesn't believe that they are from a royal family. He wasn't told that. Master Jin was like, but this is coffin, like, especially for royal families. And he says, it's only his great-grandfather that is buried in that royal coffin. Like, all the other family members are buried in normal coffin. So he doesn't know why it is like that, right? Anyway, the coffin is moved to a different site where Master Jin and the group are going to examine it to find out what they are looking for, right? Before they leave, right, Gao Yongin, tell the men to cover up the ground that was dug up, right? To cover it back up, because of course it's a taboo to bring out a body from the ground and leave it open. So he told them to cover it back up before they go back to wherever they are going to and receive their payment from Master Jin. So Gao Yongin left with the group, right, to where they'd examine the royal coffin. The people now who were supposed to cover up the hole back, right, they didn't just cover it up immediately. They were like checking the hole, maybe to see if there were treasures, because they too had seen that it was a royal coffin that was used to bury Park Ji-yeon's ancestor, right? So they were checking to see maybe there will be some sort of treasure, maybe gold or something that was dropped and buried with the coffin so that they could take it for themselves. So it was at that point where they were checking to see other things. That was when one of them, his shovel like hit something, and the sound was sort of odd. And he just continued to check, thinking that it's maybe some sort of, like I said previously, like some sort of treasure. So it was while he was digging up, he realized that okay, this could not be a treasure, there's something more to it. And he calls Master Jin's attention to it. Master Jin comes back with the group. And that's where they discover that there is another coffin there, buried in that same spot. So like it's like a coffin, like somebody was buried, right, with a coffin first, before Park Ji-yeon's great grandfather was buried exactly on top of that coffin. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. Master Jin then orders that they also exhume the second coffin to see what is there. And it's as they exhume this coffin, they bring it out. Then that is where they find that it is this second coffin that has the real answers that they're actually looking for, not the first one. So like they just open the coffin and there's a lot of chaos, a lot of things like that I don't want to really reveal. So let me just stop the review right here. I really enjoyed this movie, I'll say. I really, really enjoyed the movie. The first thing I'll say I like about this movie is that this movie requires a lot of patience if you want to watch it. It's not a movie that you can watch with like half of your mind. You're absent-minded. Maybe you're doing something else or doing house chores as it's playing and you still get it. No. This one requires you to sit down and really focus with the whole of your mind. So that's what I really like about the movie. Like I had to be like fully focused to get what was going on. And it's for mature, the movie is for mature audience, is what I'll say. Like, and I like the fact that it dealt with a lot of spirituality, Korean spirituality and all of that. I love the display of Korean traditional culture, especially. It was unapologetic, it was bold, I really liked it. The biggest message I'll say this movie was trying to say, the biggest message I was, because at first when you're watching the movie, right, Master Jin had already said it before that there are some bodies that should not be exhumed, some graves should not be exhumed, right? Like, okay, that could be like the first message, is the obvious message. But there's a deeper message, like watching the movie to the end, there's a deeper message that I got from watching this movie. And the message is that, sometimes in life, we have parents who love and care so much for their children and their future generations that they are ready to do anything to make sure that their future generations live in wealth, live in affluence, live in comfort, right? So they are ready to do anything, to sacrifice anything, so that their bloodline, is going to be affluent in life. But it's just the things that they do can come back to hurt the children, can come back to hurt the generation that they're trying to protect and trying to provide for. The sins of the fathers will be visited onto the sons, is basically what I'm trying to say. Because if you watch the movie later on, you'd realize that Park Ji-yeon's great grandfather, and I don't want to spill it, I don't want to reveal everything. Park Ji-yeon's great grandfather actually joined a sort of cult in his youth, right? Where they had told themselves that there's a certain ritual that they have to perform so that their family, their future generation is going to be wealthy for like the rest of their life. They're never going to be poor. They're going to be powerful people who speak and everybody listen to. And Park Ji-yeon's ancestors like actually agreed and followed them, and they did this sacrifice. And it is the repercussion of the sacrifice that is affecting the future generation. That is why every first grandson of that bloodline is possessed by a dark spirit and dark force. And we are just showing only Park Ji-yeon's family, but the truth is that that's what the other people too in that cult there. That's what their own future grandsons also face, just like Park Ji-yeon. So that is the biggest message I'll say I took out of it. Like sometimes a parent's love can be so much, it can be too much to the extent that the intent is actually good, right? A parent doing such a thing has good intentions for his future generations, but when we make such decisions, sometimes we have to think of, will there be any repercussions for the people that we love? So that's the biggest message I'll say I took from this movie. So that's that about this review. See you in the next one.